So President Cyril Ramaphosa last night engaged in a virtual question and answer session with some of the country's senior journalists in a meeting chaired by the South African Editors Forum, or SANEF. This follows a commitment made with the president to meet journalists on a quarterly basis to engage on matters of national importance. The meeting covered a range of issues, including the economy, Eskom and its energy challenges, corruption, gender-based violence and racism, among others. Mahlase, the Secretary General of SANEF, joins us now to talk more about it. Great to have you. Thanks so much for being with us on the show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, what is your view of how these virtual meetings take place between the president and the journalists, and also, you know, the gaps between them? Because it feels too long that we get to ask the president questions.
And that's our biggest concern as the South African National Editors Forum. Remember, one of the things that we had asked of the president is that every time he addresses the nation, he actually should allow for questions and answers, because we believe that's quite critical for accountability, because we can then ask questions so that we can understand some of the decision making. Also, this was also part of what we had pushed for when he came into office, because we had realized that even in the previous administrations, there was just not enough interaction between the president and the journalists. So he agreed to once a quarter. If you remember the last one that we had, we were also quite unhappy because he spoke for about an hour. Yes. And there were very little questions that were allowed. I think there was a marked improvement in terms of yesterday, because at least he afforded us over 2 hours, more than they had actually allocated. And it was an opportunity for many more questions to be put to the president, especially at this critical time where we are concerned about how the economy will recover from COVID-19, where we are concerned around corruption. And as you mentioned, some of the state-owned entities. I think it's quite critical that the president engages with members of the media quite often. At least we've seen in the past 2 weeks, he did so in his capacity as the ANC president and now as the president of the country. But also, having said that, I think we are pushing for more conversations with his ministers. I mean, at this critical time in terms of the economy, we need to be hearing more and engaging more with the Minister of Finance. We need to be hearing more from the Minister of Public Enterprises, given the state of our state-owned entities and what is happening at SAA, what is happening at Eskom. They need to be availing themselves a lot more. I know that various media houses have expressed frustration that they have not been able to secure interviews with the ministers. And we did appeal to the president yesterday that can they actually make themselves available so that we can ask them these critical questions.
Yeah, it's almost like it's easy to hide during these times of COVID, but this excuse is not holding up anymore. And, you know, I have to say, when the president began and he said, okay, they handed over to him for his opening remarks, I held my breath and I thought, please don't let this be an hour opening address so that we don't get any questions. Because, you know, wherever you look, and I mean, I'm even going to take Trump as an example, the US President Donald Trump, he has a press conference every single time he makes a statement, no matter what happens at those press conferences. And we see that they do get fiery at certain times. But it is important that the president is questioned. But unfortunately, I don't remember the last time I saw a one-on-one interview with a president, with any journalist, that has been able to quiz him on his decisions. Instead, it's just these Zoom meetings, which I'm not sure they're very effective.
Look, I wanted to agree with you. I mean, the American example is really a good one. You know, that, you know, the outcome of it might not be what the nation is looking for in terms of Americans, but at least the president is there to answer the questions and to hear from him. And I think that is something that we really need to push for in South Africa, because that's very much a critical component of accountability in a democratic state. You cannot have statements being released and you're not able to ask and quiz further the questions. I mean, there are so many things that were launched 4 or 5 months ago that you want to know what has happened since. But, you know, you can't communicate with the nation via press statements. There has to be an opportunity for questions. And that is quite critical. And we need to continue pushing to say that we need a lot of that. And you're right. I mean, in terms of one-on-ones with various media houses, that has not happened. But I do think that there is some value in in perhaps the Zoom engagements when they do happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, not everybody gets to ask the questions that they want to ask, and you're not able to necessarily do the follow-up questions, which are quite important. But I think there was value in us getting a sense from the president what is happening with the economy, corruption, etc. And I think if we have more of these and just look at how we engage further, then we will be moving forward. But I don't think there should be an excuse for allowing for the one-on-one conversations, for coming into studio and answering questions, especially
Indeed.
as the regulations are being relaxed.
Yeah, and he even alluded to that last night. I was listening him saying that he will be addressing us, the nation, having a family meeting next week. We don't know when, but he definitely alluded to the fact that we should see a little bit of loosening of regulations, and perhaps, he's been religious sectors have been in touch with him, tourism, all of those things. So we'll wait and hear on that. Just finally, as I let you go, we're into news headline time. So Mahlatse, you know the drill. Journalists haven't been spared in this COVID-19 crisis, and he did play reference to a lot that have lost their lives, I beg your pardon, and also the intimidation against journalists at this time that continues, and also the fact that so many jobs have been lost. I mean, we're talking to 700 jobs in the media and publication industry, so it's a huge blow. What is the president's promise? How do they feel that they can help with also the relief fund that you as SANEF have got?
Yeah, so we have actually started conversations. At the moment, we have secured over 3 million, which is immediate relief for journalists, just so that those that have lost their jobs, especially freelancers who don't have severance pay, etc., can be able to put food on the table. But in the next coming weeks, as SANEF, we have taken a decision that we will be looking at media sustainability, and we will be engaging with government because, we do have institutions like the MDDA. We need to be finding out how else can we bolster those institutions so that we can help in this crisis? Because the one thing that we must all be aware of is that if we have a weakened media, then it is quite problematic for our democracy, because it then creates gaps for accountability, it creates gaps for the public to be informed, and all of us should actually worry about fewer publications being out there, whether it's or even radio stations and other news agencies.
It is indeed very important discussion there. Mahlatse, thank you. Keep up the great work. And our Secretary General of SANEF, which even the President alluded to, maybe he should become the Secretary General after his presidency. Mahlase, talking to us about the Q&A session that took place virtually between the President and the editors around the country that happened last night. All right, let's quickly get you the news headline.